So I have a question for you. What is it that you really like to do the most? Like out of your whole day, you wake up in the morning, you have this to do, have that to do, go to work or study or whatever it is. Between that time when you wake up in the morning and the time that you go to sleep at night, what is the thing that you absolutely like to do the most and that brings you the most joy? And that when you think about it, it just sort of lights you up inside and it just sort of excites you. It just sort of makes you feel like there's something fucking really special about this and you could just do this all day. Maybe you don't have the time to do it all day now, or maybe you only get to do it here and there, or you haven't really structured things in a way where you have the complete freedom to do that. But what is that thing for you? What is that thing for you where when you engage with it, you just really know who you are and you really know what you're doing? And it's almost like you can't help getting little flickers when you're doing it of like what your life could be like if you were doing this all the time. And this is the thing that you really want to base your life around it. Whether you do it a lot of the time, whether you do it just some of the time, or maybe it was something that you were doing at one point and you were actually really interested in this thing and it did really move you and you didn't maybe even know why it moved you so much, or you didn't even really know why it had that effect on you or how to make sense of it. Maybe you didn't even think about it because when you were doing it, you were just so in flow. And it's something that you really used to get joy out of, but then you stopped getting joy out of it, or you just stopped doing it entirely because someone told you you had to do something else. Or I have someone in my life and she has a natural talent, like a natural flair for art. And I can see that by how much she enjoys it. And she told me this story a while back, and she told me this story of how when she was a kid, she loved painting so much. And she would go to these classes and she would paint, right? She would go to these classes and learn painting as a kid. And she learned from this couple who, they were like quite successful artists. And I think they were sort of like, the feeling I got from her is that they were kind of like philanthropic. They enjoyed sort of giving back from art. It wasn't just really about making money for them. So they would take on some closer students. And she sort of told me how she used to go to them and she just had this amazing flair for it. And when she was telling me this part of the story, I was really engaged with her. And it made sense to me given like the fact that I know that she can create these really great pictures. Like her and I are both painters and we both like to design things. But the way she could paint things, I can tell that like her natural skill level is far higher than mine. Like as if she's had something already baked in there in a way. And what she told me as the story went on is that even though she loved art that much, her parents just eventually stopped supporting her through it. And it's not like that they were wicked or that they didn't want her to do what she really enjoyed. It was more just the fact that at the time and where she was, it was sort of just expected that you would do these few things and you didn't really have time for something that was looked at like kind of like a luxury, like art. You know, you had to get your grades up. You had to be a part of a big world, and you didn't really have time to just put into that thing that you really liked to do or that you wanted to do because it just wasn't really encouraged in a way. And it's funny because that seems so normal. And I guess like nowadays, obviously she's a bit older now and she looks back on it and she's sort of started to get back into her art. And although she's happy she's got back into her art, and although she's happy she's finding that thing in herself now, there's still that sense of like, what could have been if I had stayed with this? Because I know I love it now. I know I loved it then. But there was so many years in between, like something like over 20 years in between, where I didn't really get to express that part of myself. And I guess it's just this kind of thing that makes you wonder, like, as you start to get a bit older and as you start to develop your personality and you start to get a deeper sense of like the things that you like and the things that you don't like, you start thinking to yourself, like, what are the things that are actually like fucking meaningful to me? Like, if you're in a place where, you know, maybe the best thing in your life is smoking joints and, you know, drinking alcohol, taking pills, or watching television shows, maybe stuff like that. That's kind of, to me, like, I would look at those things as obviously they're like the substitutes for genuine enjoyment. You know, they're like, they're like the cheap thrills. They're a source of enjoyment that you don't really have to work for, and it doesn't really engage you at any level deep inside. So they work as a supplement in a way. And I guess for a lot of us, because we don't really like what we're doing in our everyday life, right? We don't really like that we go to the job we go to. We might not really like that we're in the relationship we're in. There's lots of things we can find really difficult and sort of foggy about our situation. And sometimes it feels like the only way to get any of that joy is to actually, you know, is to smoke those doobs, or to sit around having a Netflix marathon and eating like some low vibrational crap, like some Dominoes or some bullshit like that. And it, you know, the point of this, by the way, is not to criticize anyone for that. That's kind of just it makes sense, really, I guess, why that goes around so much. I've had my fair share of that. And what I'm kind of noticing nowadays more is that, like, it's not really that I'm ever, like, there's nothing really in me that's attracted to going to get high or doing drugs or to like eating crap just naturally. It's more the fact that I just don't, if I don't have anything that I really love, if I'm not focusing on what I love, I'm naturally I'm gonna get that joy somewhere, you know, because as human beings, we have like an innate sense of, we need joy. We need something that engages us. We need something that makes sense to us. We need something that really has us being we need some higher self connection. And we're gonna get that enjoyment one way or another. And the way that a lot of things are set up around us now is that it's easier to just get that joy from that pizza or from that doobie. It's a lot harder to find that joy from something we're genuinely passionate about. And when we actually see that people are genuinely passionate about what they do, it's almost now that, like, we almost look at it like it's a rarity, and like it's like they're like a freak of nature, because it looks so abnormal to us that someone can derive so much joy from their activities, from painting, or from the training they do, or from coaching people, or whatever else it is, that joy, that the form that joy comes in for that person, right? It's not so much that it's looked at as like a bad abnormal, but it's almost like we look at them like outliers, because they are outliers in a way. People who really get joy out of what they're doing, it makes you into kind of an outlier, because it's not really the norm. I mean, if you talk to people around you and you ask them this question, like, what do you actually love the most? So you wake up, like I said at the beginning, and then you go to bed at night. In that time period, what was the thing that really moved you the most? What was the activity or the state of mind or the state you had where you just felt that you were most honestly yourself and you were most honestly connected with life? And you weren't caught in like the heavy back and forth of doing things you didn't really feel like you needed to. But in that moment, you actually just felt like you were complete. You actually just felt like you were really engaged with what it was. I've often noticed that I think I've actually been quite lucky in this sense. I think I've been luckier than a lot of people. And that's because I've had a bit of a strange background. I dropped out of high school when I was in grade 8. So year 8, I was 13 years old when I dropped out of high school. And it wasn't to go get a trade or get a job or anything like that. I dropped out of high school and I spent the next 5 to 7 years pretty much continuous. Oh, maybe not that long. I spent the next few years smoking weed and playing World of Warcraft continuously. Just, that was my whole thing. I would just play World of Warcraft like all day. I would smoke weed with my friends. And yeah, later on I kind of got into reading some books and that sort of thing, reading some novels that would entertain me instead, and I sort of steadily got into dating and stuff like that. But you know, although obviously that wasn't the greatest use of time, and although it kind of makes me a bit of an anomaly in a way, I know that there are some kids who just slip through the cracks and don't end up taking part of the system that way. I think that the benefit that I got out of this, I was talking to someone about this yesterday. I think that the benefit I got out of it is I didn't really know what my meaning was or what my calling was. I mean, back then I didn't even know that a person could have a calling. But I guess at some level, I trained my mind at that age to do what I wanted to do, even though what I wanted to do was chaotic and obviously wasn't benefiting me. I knew that I couldn't be in a school classroom, and I left. And they say you can't leave, you can't just drop out of school, you can't just do this, but I figured out how to do it, and it wasn't for lack of trying on my parents' part. They did try, but I resisted them every step of the way, and it got to the point where they had jobs and lives, and I was refusing, and I managed to just sort of craftily slip my way through it. That's something else we can talk about in another video. It's a pretty interesting story how someone just doesn't end up in school. I think it's something that often surprises people when they speak to me. Not because they think I'm a genius or anything, just simply because it's unusual that someone would drop out of school. But you know, it's funny because even though I spent a lot of that time just smoking smoke and draw and playing WoW and fucking around, I always did have some sort of desire to learn. I've always kind of been sort of like a very curiously minded guy. And, you know, that eventually did read into me. I've read over probably over 150 books, mostly around psychology and personal development. I go heavily into spirituality and a lot of topics that I've had a lot of different interests for my age. And I think that looking back on it, there was a long time there where I would have changed that. I would have said, oh, I actually would have went to school because it would have been easier to get jobs, and it would have been because I used to want to go to, for last year I was studying mental health, and I was planning on leveraging that up to a counseling degree. And I thought to myself then, oh, you know, I wish I had went to school, because if I had went to school, it would have been easier to, you know, get into it's easy pathway, because there's an expected pathway. You go through high school and then you're educated at that level, and then you go to university and you get educated at that level, and then you have access to the job, and then you're, I don't know what you are then. I want to say that you're fulfilled, but I've not experienced that yet with the people I've met. It doesn't really seem to be as true as it pans out. I think it's just kind of the way we do things. We don't really often think that much about it. In fact, most people I've met who are in university, when you ask them why they're doing what they're doing, they say they don't know. And if you press them on it, they really don't know. They'll say, I don't know why I'm doing it. It just seemed like something. And although obviously it is good to do something, I guess for me, I've always had this burning sense of like, it has always sort of felt impossible for me to do things that I'm not interested in. And I know, because I always used to feel like I never really wanted to express that to people, because, you know, even when I was younger, all my friends would say, oh, well, yeah, we all hate school. But it's like, no, you guys don't like it. You'd rather be doing something else. But it's like, you can still sit through it. You can still tolerate it. And I choose not to, you know, I'm not going to degrade myself with some label like ADHD or whatever else. I just knew that the truth for me is that I just wasn't interested. And every time I went in there, I felt uncomfortable. And I felt like, why would I want to spend my whole day, 5 days a week in this environment that I don't care about, learning about things that I don't care about. And I recognized that then. I remember being 12 and 13 years old and recognizing and being fully conscious that this was not interesting to me. And obviously, you know, for me, it's like I didn't have any other guides, or like I didn't have any role models who were really doing what they were interested in. But I still had that spirit, right? I still had that sense of like, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And that led me down a lot of bad paths, you know, that smoking weed and playing WoW eventually grew into a pretty heavy addiction for both of those things and more things, which we'll talk about all this other times. And, you know, breaking free of those addictions has been really challenging. I've had some really good support. I've had a fantastic therapist. I've had some good friends. I've had good partners. But breaking free of those things has been really challenging. But, you know, through all that, I'm still happy that I did what I wanted to do. And that even at that age, I took accountability for the fact that I wanted to do what I wanted to do. Even when everyone told me, life's going to be hard and you're going to be fucked and you're not going to be able to get jobs and you're not going to be able to do this and that. Well, I think the way I just made sense of that in my mind was I'd rather life be hard and not be able to participate in the way that I'm told I'm supposed to participate, and be able to live with myself and have a sense of I can do what I want to do when I wake up today, and then not have that. And now obviously that's become more complex because I live by myself. I have to take responsibility for myself. I have to take care of myself. I do have to figure things out like money. I'm planning to travel the world. I go on dates with different people. I want to be able to have social hangouts with my friends. I want to be able to buy the books I like, the clothes I like. I want to be able to buy canvas. I'm looking at canvas, by the way. I want to be able to buy canvas to paint on. And it is important to me to have money now. But still, I can't get that question out of my head usually. It's like, what is it that really makes me feel the most alive and makes me the happiest? And when I start thinking like that, I start thinking that is kind of the thing that I like to see in other people as well. For me, when I'm speaking to someone, sorry, very loud siren. A lot of loud sirens here. When I'm speaking to someone, what I want to hear come through them and what I want to feel from them is I want to feel that enthusiasm for being alive, because that makes me feel happy. It makes me feel like there's something to be here for. The world is so big and there's so many ways we have of interacting with it. Like, have you ever wondered how an art form can be a way of interacting with life? Like, if we take something like painting, if you separate painting down into all its parts, it's like we use different chemicals or natural substances to mix together to make, you know, something, this viscous paint material. Even before then, people were using liquids, just random liquids to create paintings, right? Cave paintings have been around for thousands, if not way longer, a long time. We mix these paintings together and we stretch out canvas and we create an image out from inside of us and we project it out onto the canvas. And it's the same with film, right? Like with film, when we're filming something, we're capturing a certain element of reality, whether it's for a story or we're filming something out in the real world. We're making a documentary. Or when it's music, we're channeling some sort of emotion that's inside of us, something invisible, something nebulous, and speaking it out into the world. And people understand that and resonate that with that and attune to that. And it feeds on itself because it's like, wow, when I wake up in the morning, I really get to express myself. I really get to express myself fully. And when I'm really expressing myself fully like that, I feel like I'm alive. I feel like there's a reason for doing things. And to me, I don't know about you guys, I am just unable to get that outside of myself. I'm just unable to I'm just unable to sort of get over that in myself. It's like I can't really look at life in a way where it's just like I would just go do things that seem like the appropriate thing to do so I can survive. It's like, no, I don't want to waste my opportunity here doing that, right? And that's really what I'm asking you. That's what I'm hoping to connect to you about. Like, you know that both of us are not going to be here for that long. So what is it that we want to do in the meantime? What is it that we want to impress upon the world? What is it that we want to see change? Or what is it that we want to preserve? Do we want to preserve some quality? Do we feel like there's some quality that's being lost? Or do we want to bring a new quality in entirely? When you create something that you love to create, do you want other people to surround themselves with it so they can surround themselves with that same beauty that you imbued into the thing? What is it that you really love to do the most? And could you structure your life around that? Could you live a life where that thing that you love to do the most is the guiding force in your day? And everything else around you, although you pay attention to it and you take accountability for your life and you're not complacent, but everything around you is sort of ancillary. It's a supportive structure for the thing that you really want to be doing. And then it's like that whole question of, my life's not meaningful, or what's it all about? It's like, well, you know what it's about for you. It's about creating this beautiful thing. That's what you like to do. And that could be anything, right? Again, like I said, it could be painting, could be music, could be software design, coaching. You could be loving being a psychologist. You could be loving cooking and being a chef. Like, it's little things like that that give us clues sometimes, and it's hard to notice. Like, it's like we're not really always trained to notice those things. Like, maybe you're so about most of the things you do, but you come home and maybe you just love to cook fresh, organic, healthy food. Like, I try to always cook fresh, organic, healthy food, and I know my life calling's probably not being a chef, but I like to do it still. And it's not just like having one thing you enjoy. It's like, how can we fill our life with as much of what we enjoy as possible? People-wise, entertainment-wise, even what we wear, right? Can't see it, but I'm wearing this little like rainbow pocket keychain thing right now. And I saw it the other day when I was out, and there's almost like a part of you that, like, you know, because if you wear stuff like this as a man, there's almost like a part of you that's like, oh, a rainbow pocket keychain, that's like really effeminate. But it's like, I actually didn't buy it. I walked out of the store with my friend, and then we were walking for like about 10 minutes, and I was like, what the fuck are we doing? I need to go buy that thing. I had the signal that I wanted it, and I didn't get it because of some ridiculous reason. And it's really important to do things like that, like I'm talking about there. It seems like a small thing, but it's like, no, the kind of decisions that you make day in, day out, they're conditioning how you're conditioning your brain constantly. Like, you know about neuroplasticity, right? You know about subconsciousness. Everything that you do, you're proving to yourself that that is okay or not okay. You're always in a state of conditioning. And I conditioned to myself in that moment that it's like, no, I don't give a fuck. I like that thing. I like that rainbow keychain. I'm gonna go back and buy it, and I'll remember that in a way, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, that I'm allowed to have what I want. I'm allowed to do what I want to do because it makes sense to me and because it's gorgeous to me. And that's the same with a career. That's the same with the people you're around. That's the same with, you know, my last video has got more views than any of the other ones I've posted so far. And it's funny, right? Because it makes sense at some level. It's like, oh yeah, and like the title was good and accurate. It's like, yep, how to meet girls as an introverted guy. That is exactly what I'm explaining in the video. And that's coming from yours truly as an introverted guy who has not gone through that process, but is in that process and is getting results there. I want to share that with you. But it's funny, right? Because when we look at like that, like what's behind that? Like the reason that you want to have someone in your life, is it just purely because you want to have sex? Is it just purely because you want the status and validation? Like maybe on the surface it looks like that, but at a deeper level it's like, no, it's like you want the people around you who provide something to you. You want people who you like to have in your life. Like when you meet a really cool girl, or if you're a girl watching this, when you meet a really cool guy, or either way, maybe you're a guy and you're into guys, that's cool too. When you meet someone who you really like that, there's a way of interacting with them. You crave a certain kind of interaction. You crave the closeness, you crave the intimacy, you crave the playfulness, you crave being able to share something about yourself at 1 o'clock in the morning with them in the dark, listening to music. Or you crave being able to go somewhere. You crave being able to look into their eyes and tell them that you think they're just gorgeous, and have them give that back to you. You crave a certain kind of interaction with life. And it's funny, right? Because sometimes it's almost like there are more generally acceptable ways of interacting with life, and then there are the ways that are a bit more obscure and that we don't understand. And luckily, relationships are one that's generally accepted, although the way people tend to go about it is very strange, in my eyes at least. It's almost like we've turned meeting people and dating into this virtual online monopoly, like the Tinder and the whole... Anyway, also another conversation for another day. The point is, what do you really like to do the most? What's moving you? When you wake up in the morning and then you go to bed at night, what is the thing that made the most sense to you and moved you the most in the day? Because the thing that you're moved the most by, the thing that you're putting most of your energy into, that is your clue. It might be a small clue, it might just be a glimmer, it might just be cooking that meal and feeling like I actually feel alive when I'm doing this. Or it might be a big clue, and maybe you're actually holding out. You ever heard of the hero's journey, the Joseph Campbell stuff? Maybe you're holding out, maybe you're ignoring the call. Abraham Maslow has a great quote, I'm paraphrasing this, but his great quote is like, if you continually live below your potential, you're guaranteed a miserable life. Something like that. Maybe I'll put the quote in the description for this, because it's a really good quote. When you really think about it, it's like that, those clues, those things we have in ourselves, those little flickers of passion and of joy, they're the clues for the life that you probably, that stuff is meaningful to you. Maybe you're an artist, maybe you're a traveler, maybe when you're traveling you just feel so alive and you feel like, yes, I'm meant to be a traveler, maybe I'm meant to be a travel blogger, right? Maybe it's dating and relationships, maybe someone's having difficulty in their relationship and you're able to guide them through something and you realize it's like, oh shit, maybe I should be a relationship coach. My little sister, she told me something recently where she wanted to, she's like, you know, she's like 16, she doesn't probably know what she wants to do. Who would at that age? But she sent me a picture where she'd drawn some like henna tattoo thing on herself. And she told me about it. And when she said that, I just lit up inside. I was just like, you should do something in that. And you know, there's that sense of like, yeah, maybe I could. Yeah. And it's like, no. If you have a sense that there's something you like that, do you know how many people would kill just to have a sense that they actually like something like that? And by the way, guys, if you don't know what that thing is, or you don't have a sense of it, you don't have a clue in it, it's not a problem, but look out for it. Make a commitment to your own subconscious mind that your eyes will be open for the clues, for the breadcrumbs, for the things that you do actually like the most in life. And let yourself be open to those clues, because if you're doing what you enjoy more, you're going to have more enjoyment. And it's a compound effect. It's a simple statement. It sounds like a bit of a truism, but just because it's a simple statement doesn't mean that it's well understood. And it doesn't mean that it's lived by most of the time. So what do you enjoy the most? What's most meaningful to you? Think about it. Notice it. I promise you that it's worthwhile. If you enjoyed this, if you got any value out of this, subscribe. Let's grow this channel up. Leave a like and leave a comment. I want to be able to interact with you guys. Someone left a comment on one of my videos the other day and I really like just having a little interaction with them. So yeah, I'd love to be able to interact with you and let me know what you thought. I'll stop this on half an hour exactly.